July 1991, a month that saw India at its worst political and economic crisis in history, waking up to unshackle itself from the chains of the past and rising up to global financial supremacy 3 decades later. India lost its former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi in an explosion in May 1991, at a time when its economy was also on the brink of collapse. External debt was 23% of the GDP. Forex reserves could sustain for only 3 weeks of imports. 2 months later, on the afternoon of July 24, the newly appointed Prime Minister and his Finance Minister opened India's door to the world. And all our lives changed forever. Today, as the streets of New Delhi are glittering with lights, thematic murals and aesthetic landscaping to welcome the world's largest and richest gathering, we take you beyond the headlines to rediscover India's dramatic journey from a financial underdog to global stardom. Hello and welcome to the Times of India YouTube channel. Join the conversation by subscribing and sharing your opinions in the comments below. Tell us what you want us to explore next. 1997, the year of the global financial crisis. A debt-ridden Thailand was forced to float Thai baht, its currency, because it could not support its exchange rate to the US dollar. Basically, Thailand unpegged the Thai baht from the US dollar. This action set off an immediate chain reaction, gripping the entire Southeast Asia and later Japan and South Korea. In the meantime, Russia had defaulted on its debt, and there was a huge devaluation in Brazil. The International Monetary Fund stepped in to initiate a $40 billion program to stabilize the currencies. And the then group of industrialized countries, the Group of Seven, ideated on forming a bigger formal group of emerging economies. The unpredictability and fragility of the global economy gave birth to the Group of 20 nations, or the G20 as we know it today. June 1999. Finance ministers of the G7 nations announced the formation of Group of 20. The finance ministers from the top 20 economies huddled in Berlin to primarily focus on the sustainability of a global economic prosperity. But the debut summit was organized by Washington, D.C. in 2008. The then President George W. Bush had called for an emergency meeting between the foreign ministers of the Group of 20 nations to deliberate and seek suggestions on how to contain the damage from the historic stock market crash in America. The second-tier emerging economies were expected to steer the global financial decision-making to help the industrialized nations recover from recession. India was an important voice in the group. It was one of the few nations which had survived the 1997 financial crisis in Asia and the first round effects of the 2008 market crash. The then Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, in his speech to the G20 nations, pushed for greater inclusivity in the international financial system, highlighted the gaps in the financial system, and called for a comprehensive review of the IMF procedures. By this time, the G20 wasn't even formalized. It was only institutionalized in 2009 as a premium forum for global economic and financial cooperation.
6 months ago, I said that the London summit marked a turning point in the G20's efforts to prevent economic catastrophe.
With annual meetings between the finance ministers and leaders, the now formal group represents 2/3 of the global population, 90% of the global GDP, and 80% of the global trade. It can shape and navigate the global economy. This is how the G20 operates. All the agenda and activities are decided by the presidencies in cooperation with the memberships. All the members take up the presidency on a rotational basis. 3 countries ensure the continuity between the G20. These 3 countries are called Troika. It contains the president, the successor, and the predecessor countries. This year, India is the president, which means India will set the agenda of the group and the world, which is facing a number of pressing problems. Russia is still at war with Ukraine. The West has imposed sanctions on Russian energy, oil, and resources. There's an impending global recession, the after effects of a pandemic, climate change, and the hardening global divide inching closer towards a new Cold War era. India, as the president of this very disoriented financial club, will have to build consensus on its set agenda, while diplomatically navigating through the divide to maintain balance. In November 2022, Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced the theme of India's presidency.
भारत की G20 अध्यक्षता की थीम वन अर्थ, वन फैमिली, वन फ्यूचर में पूर्ण रूप से समाहित है। एक्सेलेंसी, G20 की अध्यक्षता ग्रहण करना हर भारतीय के लिए गर्व का अवसर है।
The Government of India launched its year of the G20 presidency on December 1 with some pomp and glory. 100 monuments from Kashmir to Kanyakumari were lit up with India's G20 logo, symbolizing the motto Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. One earth, one family, one future. Prime Minister Modi committed to making India's year of chairmanship as one that will focus on healing our one earth, creating harmony within our one family, and giving hope for our one future. He also laid out India's priorities: terrorism, climate change, pandemic prevention, global supply chains for food, fertilizers, and medical products. The entire national capital region will be under high security cover. Almost all the luxury hotels are booked. The tables are set, but the guest list is getting shorter. First, Russia's Vladimir Putin pulled out. Now, Xi Jinping is reportedly doing the same. Reports say the Chinese president will not fly into Delhi. Instead, the Chinese premier will come in instead. The reports do not mention the reason, but then China doesn't reason with reasoning. The absence of Xi and Putin will be a challenge, since G20 is the only global club with the West and its rivals under one roof. It's considered a place for common minimum events. Xi's absence will not only eliminate the chances of his face-to-face meeting with the US President Biden, but it also reduces the possibilities of a breakthrough and consensus. This will certainly be a challenge for India, but not a reason enough to stop celebrating. India's latest report card has some glaring numbers. The second quarter results show an economic growth of 7.8% in the April to June quarter. This is the highest among G20 nations. Last month, the IMF released its global economic outlook, warning of slow growth ahead, but not for India. The report predicted that India will grow more than 6% this year, which is more than any other major economy. According to the IMF, India is a global hot arena for foreign investments. It also said that growth is set to continue in the years ahead. And money talks. People, companies and countries. More the money, bigger the influence. Right now, India is at the 5th spot in global GDP size. After the US, China, Japan and Germany. The prediction says that India's economy could double in less than a decade. A recent report has claimed that India's GDP could be $6.3 trillion by 2031. To achieve this number, India needs a consistent growth rate of 6.7% every year for the next 7 years. The Q2 results this year almost match the predicted rate. Last year's results were at 7%, which also balances it out. All this despite the global economic slowdown and higher domestic interest rates. India is on the trajectory of financial supremacy. The key to global power and stardom. The G20 summit and results could be India's second giant leap after the Chandrayaan-3's successful moon landing, and perhaps a first in many more triumphs to come. What do you think about India's role in the G20 and its economic growth prospects? Are there other topics or stories you'd like us to explore in future episodes? Your feedback and suggestions are invaluable to us, so don't hesitate to join the conversation by subscribing and sharing your views.